It is 1 a.m. in Washington, 6 in Berlin, and 2 on a Thursday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young. Here are the top stories making headlines at this hour. President Park Geun-hye tells German Chancellor Angela Merkel that once divided Germany is the model for Korean reunification. This as she pushes for an end to the Korean Peninsula's six-decade divide. At the request of the United States, the UN Security Council will convene this Thursday to discuss a possible condemnation of North Korea's latest ballistic missile launches. A to-do list that involves scrapping unnecessary regulations in more than 50 areas. The Korean government unveils the specifics for its deregulation drive. We'll have those stories and more, but let us begin with President Park's state visit to Germany. Now, President Park, who has been campaigning for the reunification of the two Koreas in Germany this week, has secured the full support of Berlin based on Germany's own unification experience. President Park called it bonanza, whereas Angela Merkel, the German chancellor, said it was Glücksvoll, which means the same in German. Our Choi Yoo-sun has the latest on President Park's meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel.
At a joint press conference, Chancellor Merkel said Germany, which has gone through unification itself, is responsible for supporting the two Koreas' will to reunite. And President Park and the German Chancellor agreed to set up a cooperative system to prepare the Korean Peninsula for social and economic unity.
독일이 갖고 있는 통일에 대한 어떤 경험, 또 지식 이런 것을 참고로 해서 우리 한반도에서도 평화 통일을 이루기 위해서 어떤 준비를 해야 할까 하는 것을 여러 가지로 구체화해 나가고자 합니다.
When asked about President Park's recent description of reunification on the Korean Peninsula as a bonanza, Merkel said Germany's unification was indeed a bonanza. Coming from the communist East herself, Merkel said she witnessed the lives of more than 17 million East Germans change for the better after the fall of the Berlin Wall.
A lot of economic support will be necessary in connection with a reunification. The second thing is that people should be prepared to get to know very different biographies.
President Park also garnered Merkel's support behind her trust-building policies towards North Korea, at the same time urging Pyongyang to give up its nuclear weapons. On the economic front, the two leaders agreed to expand cooperation between the two sides' small and mid-sized firms in vocational training and science and technology. Earlier in the day, President Park visited the Brandenburg Gate, a landmark in Berlin, symbolic of German unification. Behind me is the Brandenburg Gate, which President Park visited earlier on this Wednesday. She'll continue with her reunification campaign here in Germany this week by meeting with former officials who are at the center of German unification and by laying out her reunification policies during a speech in Dresden. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, Berlin.
Meanwhile, North Korea has blasted President Park for emphasizing the importance of denuclearizing North Korea at the Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague that, of course, wrapped up earlier this week. A spokesperson from the regime's committee that deals with the unification said Thursday that President Park's remarks were, quote, thoughtless and ignorant, and that she should watch what she says if she really wants to improve inter-Korean relations. Now, the harshly worded comments mentioning President Park directly by name are the first since Pyongyang had agreed to stop cross-border slandering. And the South Korean government says it regrets the disrespectful remarks. It also said Pyongyang should understand that President Park was not trying to slander North Korea. The United States has called an urgent UN Security Council meeting to seek ways to punish North Korea for its latest ballistic missile firings. U.S. Congress will also consider North Korea's sanctions legislation in May. Hwang Ji-hye has this report.
The UN Security Council will hold discussions Thursday on ways to punish North Korea for its latest ballistic missile launches. The request for a special meeting came from the United States after Pyongyang test-fired two medium-range Nodong ballistic missiles into the EC. On Wednesday, Deputy U.S. State Department spokeswoman Marie Harf said Washington is already in talks with other members of the UN Security Council and its allies and partners to take appropriate measures against the North for its latest provocation.
But those are choices the North Korean government has to make. And we've been clear that the sanctions, the diplomatic isolation, the economic isolation, the political isolation, that will all continue as long as they don't.
She went on to emphasize the U.S. takes Pyongyang's latest military posturing seriously since it clearly violates UN Security Council resolutions banning the nation from any ballistic missile launches. In a related move, U.S. Congress will also consider North Korea sanctions legislation in May. Representative Ed Royce, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, unveiled the schedule as he addressed a congressional hearing on North Korea's human rights abuses. Roy said his committee will do all it can to hold the North Korean leader and his aides responsible for crimes against humanity. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Newly released diplomatic documents show that North Korea extended an olive branch to the United States in the 1980s, only to have it sent back. Seoul-based Yonhap News reports that the North Korean ambassador to Geneva approached his U.S. counterpart at a reception in 1982 and handed him an envelope with a message from then North Korean leader Kim Il-sung. The letter was promptly returned the next day, still sealed. While the content of the message are not known, it is believed it was an attempt by Pyongyang to improve its ties with Washington. Meanwhile, in an attempt to resolve the so-called comfort women issue, civic groups from the two Koreas will meet soon to discuss ways to counter Japan's denial of its wartime crimes. Our foreign affairs correspondent Hwang Sang-hee has this report.
In a rare show of cooperation, civic groups from the two Koreas will seek ways to demand Japan issue an official apology for its wartime sexual enslavement of women in the early 20th century. The Seoul-based Korean Council for the Women drafted for military sexual slavery by Japan said Thursday that it will meet with a North Korean civic group at the end of this month in the Chinese city of Shenyang. Around 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve the Japanese military during the Second World War, and many are still waiting for a heartfelt apology from Japan. The planned conference will be the first time in 8 years for the Koreas to put their heads together on the matter. An official at Seoul's Unification Ministry said the South Korean civic group proposed to counter Japan's ongoing denial of its wartime crimes together, and that the North agreed. 24 South Koreans, including one survivor of Japan's military sexual slavery, will meet 10 North Korean representatives. Meanwhile, a diplomatic source said Wednesday that a Japanese government official met with a human rights activist taking care of the Korean victims for the first time last week in Seoul. The Japanese government initially asked to meet with the comfort women to determine their demands ahead of a government-level meeting between Seoul and Tokyo next month. The Japanese official reportedly said Tokyo wants to resolve the diplomatic feud, stressing Prime Minister Shinzo Abe showed his sincerity about the matter by stating his willingness to uphold Japan's landmark 1993 apology to the comfort women. In response, the South Korean activist urged Japan to acknowledge Tokyo's legal responsibility for forcing the victims into sexual slavery. The activist also said the Japanese leader should apologize to the victims on the international stage. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, another thoughtless remark has been uttered by a Japanese politician that is sure to anger Korea, and this a day after the trilateral summit between Seoul, U.S. and Tokyo, of course. On Wednesday, the leader of the opposition Japan Restoration Party, Shintaro Ishihara, said his country's colonial rule of the Korean peninsula in the early to mid-1900s was necessary to defend itself against the Soviet Union's advance into Asia. Well, Ishihara, known for his hawkish views, went on to say that the bilateral relationship between Seoul and Tokyo is more important to Korea than to Japan. He also expressed doubts about the benefits of the improving relationship between Korea and China. Ishihara's remarks followed the first official meeting of the current leaders from Korea and Japan earlier this week in The Hague.
all of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Moon Gon-yong live from Seoul.
Mobile shopping market. For the dual use of the Korean name East Sea and Japanese name Sea of Japan in school textbooks in the state of Virginia. Korea's newest political party hit the ground running this morning, one day after its official launch. In its first Supreme Council meeting, the New Politics Alliance for Democracy said its first moves will focus on helping those who have fallen through the cracks of the welfare system. Our political correspondent Ji Myung-gil reports.
화이팅! 화이팅! 지방 선거 승리와 국가 교체 화이팅! 화이팅! 화이팅!
The New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party set sail this Thursday with the opening of its first Supreme Council meeting. The new opposition party's co-leaders Kim Han-gil and An Chol-soo said their focus is on the people.
Our New Politics Alliance's first priorities will be enhancing the people's livelihoods. Our first lawmaking activities will be devoted to revising 3 existing welfare bills.
The proposed amendments to the 3 welfare bills focus on reaching those most in need of financial help. Kim said the poor have become even poorer since the Park Geun-hye administration took office last year.
After President Park Geun-hye's government launched, the people have been struggling more. If our first revised welfare bill gets passed, some 1 million desperate families who are in need of financial help will receive it from the government.
As for the June 4th local elections, Kim Han-an said that the New Politics Alliance for Democracy will not engage in a nomination process, saying it acts as a breeding ground for bribery and corruption. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the Korean government is wasting no time in its push to cut out the red tape it says is slowing down economic growth. The Deputy Prime Minister convened a meeting this morning and picked out dozens of regulations that will either be amended or abolished completely in the coming months. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The government is speeding up its deregulatory reforms. Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok presided over the first ministerial-level meeting on the matter Thursday to inspect, evaluate, and come up with follow-up measures to President Park Geun-hye's 3-year economic innovation plan. They started with the recommendations proposed during working-level talks held earlier this week and pinpointed 52 regulations that could be improved, including one that would ultimately allow for the operation of food trucks. Hyun said 41 of the regulations can be addressed immediately, with 27 of them to be amended in the first half of this year.
Regulations that could be amended by administrative or in-house measures should be completed and ready to take effect by April. Regulations that require legislative amendments, let's get them done by the end of June.
Hyun said the ministry will work with other related ministries and propose supplementary measures to minimize possible side effects that may arise during the deregulatory process. One surrounds restrictions on the online gaming industry that were implemented due to the rising rate of addiction. The Finance Ministry, along with other ministries, will conduct research on the matter to come up with guidelines. A task force will be launched to find ways to promote the country's service sector, particularly in the finance, education, medical, broadcasting, and tourism areas. The Korea Society for Regulatory Studies estimates that around 200,000 new jobs will be created through deregulation in the medical and education sectors alone. The ministry is also going to be gathering opinions and recommendations from the public on economic innovation through a portal site. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, on a very arts and culture note, a musical that took Korea by storm 2 years ago is back with some familiar faces and some new ones as well. It's about Korea's traditional singing style pansori, and not only do they have new actors, but they have given the storyline a slight twist as well. Our culture correspondent Park Ji-won has more.
This is one of the most beloved stories among the Korean people. Sapyeonjae was originally a Korean novel published in the 1970s. It was later adapted into a successful film in the 90s, and then into Changguk, a modernized pansori performance genre. And of course, it was also turned into a musical. First adapted into a musical in 2010, it won 5 musical awards and was put back on the stage in 2012. Now, musical Sapyeonjae is back again after 2 years. It's being put on by the same staff, but with some new songs and new actors. Musical Sapyeonjae centers on one of the most original plots of the novel, in which traveling pansori artist Yu Bong blinds her daughter Songhwa to develop her singing talents. However different from the original plot, musical Sapyeonjae gives Songhwa's brother Dongho a new twist. In the most recent adaptation, he wants to become a rocker rather than a pansori artist. Seasoned Broadway musical actor Michael Lee joins the cast to play Dongho.
At the core of the character of Dongho, he is somebody who is searching for his voice. This is something that all artists can relate to, that all actors, no matter what culture you're a part of, can relate to.
The musical presents diverse genres of music, from pansori and pop to rock music.
Pansori is a main theme of the musical. However, not all the music is from the pansori genre. I paralleled other genres of music like pop and rock to make the pansori stand out for its beauty.
K-pop group MBLAQ's Gio also joined the cast to play Dongho. Star pansori singer Lee Ja-ram and famous musical singer Cha Ji-yeon have returned to the stage to reprise their past roles. The musical runs until May 11th at Universal Arts Center in Seoul. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, the film world descended upon Hong Kong this week for FilMart, the Hong Kong international film and television market. As China and other Asian markets continue to grow and catch up with Hollywood, this FilMart, as the largest film market in Asia, is an event that's becoming more important with each passing year. Sales agents from all around the globe, along with filmmakers, festival programmers, and government film bodies have all been marching the busy market floor all week, trying to find or become the next big thing in Asia. Busy though it is, the market is not the only thing happening in Hong Kong, as the Asian Film Awards will take place tonight and the Hong Kong International Film Festival will run for a few more weeks. And joining the hustle and bustle this week was our very own film critic Pierce Conran, who is at the Hong Kong FilMart himself, and he connects with us from Hong Kong to give us the lowdown on FilMart. Hello there, Pierce.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm great. And now, before we go on any further, tell us what FilMart is.
Well, FilMart is a huge event here in Hong Kong. It's the HK FilMart, which stands for the Hong Kong International Film and Television Market. And it's essentially an event with, it's an exhibition hall with many booths. And there's many distributors are here, buyers for film, journalists are marching the floor. There's just a lot of activity between filmmakers and producers and all the rest of it. So everyone has their particular wares they want to sell. It's both film and television. There's also technical crews and things like that. And this happens along with the Hong Kong International Film Festival, the Asian Film Awards, and also a financing forum for new films. There's quite a lot going on at the same time.
So basically, if you are, part of the film world, you want to be there right now. So let me ask you, Pierce, obviously you're there as a film critic, but what do you do when you're there?
Well, I like many people. I have kind of a variety of roles when I'm here at FilMart. Right behind me, you'll see that's the sign, the Korean Film Council, which I write and I work for. Now, right here, I'm in the middle of the market floor. This is the pavilion of the Korean Film Council. There's kind of an umbrella. They have a lot of stuff here. Now I write for a number of people, and so I'm kind of here trying to gathering information. I'm also watching some film, not as much as the festival, but they have market screenings that I can go to here as press. And also I'm doing some other projects. I'm working on kind of producing some films, kind of promote Korean films in general. It's a lot of things, quite busy all the time.
and obviously contributing to Arirang TV here. Now, we are aware that Korean films and TV shows are increasingly gaining popularity across Asia. How big is the Korean presence at FilMart?
Well, these days it's certainly quite significant. Right here, as I said, this is the Kofic Pavilion, and there's a number of companies. There must be something like 36 Korean companies are represented here by various agents and reps, and there's a lot of films that people are buzzing about. And like Lotte are here, CJ are here. They're showing big chunks of their summer films to buyers. I know that a lot of these companies have been doing very well and selling their films quite strongly to not just Asian sales companies, but also in Europe and North America. There's quite a lot of activity, and of course, because of the recent announcement of the Avengers shooting in Korea and providing that location incentive, people are coming here and kind of inquiring about that for future projects of their own outside of Korea.
This Asian Film Awards that's happening along with the Hong Kong International Film Festival, what Korean films are up for big awards there?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of Korean films were nominated this year, just showing another very strong year for the Korean film industry. And just for a little bit of background, the Asian Film Awards, they don't happen here, they happen actually in Macau this year. But they're all connected. There's one kind of umbrella organization called the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, and they kind of run all these events. They're all connected. And so the people that will go to the Asian Film Awards they're all here at the moment, walking the floor, and that event will happen on Friday. Now, the big film that was nominated was, of course, Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer. Not just a hit in Korea, it's a hit with many people around the world, except for Best Film, Director, Script, Production Design, and Costume Design. The Attorney is also doing very well. A lot of nominations in the acting categories. Song Kang-ho, of course, for Best Actor. Joo Si-won is going to be up for Best Newcomer, and veteran actress Kim Yong-hae is up for Best Supporting Actress. Cold Eyes, also quite well represented. Han Hyo-joo for Best Actress, and Jung Woo-sung, very popular Korean actor, for Best Supporting Actor. And the film is also up for Cinematography and Editor Awards. So there's a few other things, also the Face Reader for Costume Design, and Mr. Go for Visual Effects. Actually, if you're able to see behind me, there's an animatronic gorilla head that is used in Mr. Go. The company that did that are, of course, represented here at the pavilion.
So, obviously, different corners in the filmmaking process that Korea has been representing is there, basically. So have any of these projects that stood out for you?
Now, Lotte have a film called The Fatal Encounter, previously called King's Wrath. It's the big comeback of the huge star Hyun Bin, was away on his military service. Potential buyers were able to watch a 20-minute promo reel of the film. So people have been interested in that. The film Sea Fog, which is represented by Fine Cut, is drawing a lot of attention. It's produced by Bong Joon-ho, and that'll be coming out this summer. The company Showbox has a few very interesting films, including the film A Hard Day, which is a thriller which will come out in May, and Kundo, The Age of the Rampants, big period epic that'll be coming out this summer. CJ, of course, are here as well, particularly with the film The Target, a thriller which I believe will be coming out in May, starring Lee Sung-myung.
Well, we are, wishing for the best for these films, but since it is the Hong Kong international film market, does the Korean film industry have any plans to work with perhaps Chinese companies?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, of course, everyone wants to work with China these days, and more than most other countries, Korea is already quite well connected here. The Korean Film Council actually have an office in Beijing where they house kind of new Korean filmmakers and try and start these new co-productions with China, and there's been a decent amount of success with that. And film companies like CJ Entertainment are also really kind of already on the ground there. They're producing films locally for China, like A Wedding Invitation, which is very popular, and the film Mr. Go was also co-produced with China. So there's quite a lot going on. Everyone wants to get in. Work together, and there's going to be bigger fruits further down the road from these collaborations.
Well, it looks like there will be another Hollywood here in Asia amongst the Asian countries making films. All right, Pierce, thank you for joining me all the way from Hong Kong, and we hope to see you back here in the studio next Friday.
Absolutely, I'll be looking forward to it.
Good afternoon. Today definitely feels like early summer with the highs in some regions reaching up to 25 degrees. However, as there is still about 15-degree temperature gap between the mornings and nights, make sure to carry an extra cardigan or a scarf. Now for more details, let's shift over to our satellite map. Right now we have no clouds, but there has been slight increase in the level of fine dust and fog in the atmosphere, which means it's rather hazy right now. Now going over to our temperature readings. Seoul tops out at 22 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will peak up to 23 and 20 degrees. Now moving over to other regions. Jeju Island can expect it up to 17 degrees. Dokdo peaks at 15, while Mankumgang tops out at 11. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you, Kanyang.
Well, thank you for that, Michelle. And that's all from me at this hour. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with Business Today at 4 p.m. Korea time. See you then.